Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Aquarium of the Pacific. Sorry for startling some of you. So, in about 5 minutes, we're going to have a really exciting diver interaction here. You guys may know about it. Not only is it a diver interaction, we're going to watch all of our fish get fed. So my name is Thomas. I'm a member of the education department. I do have a couple favors before this starts. If some of you guys are on the glass, if you guys could back up for me. Back up to the other side. This way everybody else can see what's happening too. So you guys too, can you guys back up for me off the glass? If you want, you can take a seat. But we do want to give at least a couple feet back so everybody else can see. This is a very exciting dive. Oh, hi, we can all say hi to one of our zebra sharks. As you can see, the sharks and the fish are starting to get really excited. How many of you guys like lunch? Yeah, right, lunch is super awesome. As you can tell, I'm a big fan of food, as are most of our fish. Now, this is our biggest exhibit here at the aquarium. If you walked in under that big silver sign that says tropical, and every time you look to your right, you were looking at the same exhibit. So my question to you is, how big do you think this exhibit is? I'm looking for a number in gallons. Very big is accurate, but can I get a number? 5,000 is a good guess, but that's way shy of what it is. 8,500. Closer. We need to add another zero. Let's try this. 350,000 gallons of water. Now, not only is it a very large volume of water, it is our most biodiverse exhibit here. Who knows what biodiversity means? Yeah, heard it over here to my right. Different types of fish. Now, technically, biodiversity just means different types of life. But here, we are looking at all the different types of fish. We have almost 900 individual species, actually a little over 900 individual animals here, representing over 100 different species of fish. As you guys can see, it's very pretty, isn't it? We have a lot of different types of things to be looking at. Now, the reason we call this the blue corner, if you all look to your left, my right, on the far wall, you can see that it is what color? Blue. And it's not that we ran out of rock and coral. We're actually using that to replicate the open ocean, which is kind of where this is. This is built off an actual dive site found in Palau. Now, the Blue Corner dive site is very special, not just because it's an amazing dive site. It's on my list. I haven't gotten there yet. But it is actually very famous for being the world's first shark sanctuary. So what do we think a shark sanctuary is? What do you think? Nope? Oh, I thought you were raising your hand. All right. So a shark, exactly, a place of safety for the sharks. So Palau really wanted to protect their reefs and all of the different types of fish that were living here. And they're like, you know what we need to do? We need to protect the sharks. Because sharks play a very important role in regulating the whole ecosystem. We're going to learn a little bit about that when our divers get in the water, because our divers are going to be wearing a very special piece of equipment. Most divers, do we have any divers here? One diver? A couple divers? One diver. Awesome. Well, our divers know that this is a pretty important sign for all divers. What does this mean? It means okay, right? This is how most divers communicate underwater. You ever try and talk to a friend in the pool? It doesn't work. Right? Also, not to mention they can't really hear you because our ears work above water. As you can see here, this yellow cord is coming in. That cord is not an air cable for our divers. That is a microphone cable. They're going to have a full face mask, and we're going to be able to talk directly to our divers. And they're going to tell us where to be looking, because this is a dive feed, as I mentioned. As you can see, the fish are getting very excited. So when you see our whole dive team, because it is a orchestrated chaos, let's say, of when we feed all of these animals, look for the little buckets that they're holding and the pieces of food that the divers have. As you can see, our animals are getting very excited. They know it's time for lunch. So we have about a minute. Does anybody have questions that you want me to ask the diver before we turn on their microphone and we say hello? Why the fish don't eat each other? That is a good question. I will remember to I will ask him that. Any other questions? What are they feeding? We'll go over that as well. Why the sharks don't eat the fish? These are all really good questions. So I will remember to ask this to our diver. Just getting their microphone cable ready, and they're going to start this process called the descent. There we go. They're going to slowly sink down, making sure that everything's good, and they're going to give me that okay sign. I'm going to turn on their microphone, and we're going to watch all of our fish and sharks get lunch. You guys excited? All right. Go ahead and wave to the diver. They can see you just like you can see them. You could. All right. So we're going to get that okay sign when they are ready and situated, and then we're going to watch this dive feed. So notice how some of the other divers coming in are holding buckets, pieces of PVC with neoprene. That is holding the fish food. You can see the fish are very interested and excited for this, as are you guys, right? All right. So we're going to give our diver a couple seconds to get situated. And we got that okay sign there. Perfect. Good afternoon.
Hi there.
Who are we talking to today?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Good. I didn't. Sometimes I can hear it reverberate. This is Dave. How is everybody? Enjoying your summer vacation? No school? Isn't that great? Anyway, we're having a wonderful time in here because guess what? The water's nice and warm. You might have already said that because this is a tropical reef exhibit. And I know you said that I could hear you up there. The fish are getting very excited because we're about to feed all of them. So it's really exciting for all of you. You're going to see how some of them are eating. Sorry, my earpiece went through. And we're going to be feeding the stingrays right over here, and everybody's going to get fed.
Well, that's going to be exciting. So are there things we should look for, or should we just help you start this whole process?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Are there so we're going to be feeding the stingrays on the left?
We're going to be feeding the stingrays over here, right into their mouths, right up against the glass. There's one of them. We're going to be distracting all the other animals over here, the trevallies, because they're really fast. And if we don't distract certain fish, we won't be able to feed the stingrays because then we'll be bombarded. So what we do is we distract and then we target feed certain animals.
Which is awesome. And we can talk a little bit more about that while it's happening. So are we...
Well, now there's a couple, by the way, we don't feed the sharks. You're going to see, there's my favorite right there, the bonnet head. What does he look like? Looks like what, a hammerhead shark, right? You've seen those pictures? We don't feed them, but we are going to feed these guys right here. These are our best friends.
Well, it's going to be exciting. I can't wait.
You've seen it a million times, but they haven't, so they're going to really love it. And I'm going to bring them down in just a second. What were some of the questions that they had?
That was a good point. So one of the questions was, what are we feeding all of our animals here?
We are feeding them restaurant-quality seafood, cut up pieces of clam, shrimp. Sometimes they eat better than all of us, so we make very painstakingly efforts to make sure everything's very clean, and they feed really, really well. So, and we also make sure we're not overfeeding the animals. So it's on a set time every day, and they're not really here to share food with each other. So we put it out there, and they go for it. This guy here is actually fed up on the surface, so that's why he doesn't come over to me. He doesn't look to me as a food source. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring all the divers down, and you can start seeing how they're going to feed.
Oh, that's going to be exciting. So it looks like we're starting the dive. So you can see all the other divers coming down with that food. So again, you're going to see all of our stingrays fed up against the glass so you can watch them eat on the left here. And you're going to see kind of behind me what some of us like to call a fish tornado.
Yes.
Now, you had mentioned that target feed, so this is more of a scatter feed, right?
Yeah, right here you can see Jeff here is being bombarded right over to your right, my left. Why is he doing this? Because he's distracting all of these animals. These are very fast swimmers. Allison over here is going to be feeding the one stingray, or what we call our darker mangrove ray. The shark's going to come over here. He wants to get in on it, but we're not going to be feeding him. So Allison's going to wait for the appropriate time. So get your cameras ready so you can see that.
Now, you mentioned that we're feeding a lot of our fish seafood. Are all of our fish in here carnivores, or do some eat?
Some of them are going to eat some lettuce that I'm going to pull out in a little bit later. I got some right here. So we're going to be feeding them broccoli and lettuce. They love it. It takes the place of the actual plant life down there. So here she goes.
It's very exciting to watch that. You can actually see as stingrays, their mouths are on the bottom of their body. which is a good indication of where they're going to find their food. You can see that they're normally going to actually feed off of the bottom, eating shrimp and clams and even crabs. They have pretty flat teeth to munch them up, crunch up all those guys. Now,
isn't that beautiful? Their bottom, though. Their bottom there. Do you see all the sensory areas? There she goes. There we go.
Which is always exciting to see, and that's our mangrove ray, right?
That's our mangrove ray. We will not feed them both together because then they fight and they start biting each other. So we've been trying to separate the rays.
Seems like a good idea. Always taking care of our animals is priority. And now you had mentioned something that's kind of curious. I'd like to return back to you if you don't mind.
Yes.
There are some really faster fish and aggressive fish, because that was one of the other questions that we had. Is how come the fish don't eat each other? And so I'd like to point out the golden trevally. You'd mentioned them briefly, but can we talk a little bit more about them?
Yeah, they're there. The golden trevallies are the yellow with the black stripes. You will also see that as we feed them, their stripes get darker. It's a way that they communicate with each other when they're feeding us. It's amazing to watch. They're probably one of the fastest deep blue water runners in the ocean. There they are. Very fast. If we weren't feeding them there, they'd be over here attacking Allison because they're hungry. So, and they're a lot of fun. They don't have really big teeth. They just kind of punch at us. He's going to go take a rest. He'll probably come back in just a few minutes. The stingrays, by the way, are so tame to us that guy actually comes up and visits us up at the surface, waits for us to get in the water. They're not in danger to us. They do have stingers, but we do shave them off every few months. Again, they're never threatened by us, so that's why we're not too concerned.
And that's the same with the sharks too, right? You're not concerned about swimming next to your bonnethead shark right there?
No, not at all. The bonnethead is more scared of us than we are of them. The amazing thing about that shark is it never quits moving, so when you see that shark go by, he's been moving like that 24 hours a day for several years. They never quit moving, otherwise they can't breathe. That's the way they breathe.
That's right. Those bonnet heads are what we call ram ventilators. You may have heard that before, that a shark has to keep on swimming or it's not going to breathe. Now, that's not true for all sharks. Our zebra sharks have a pretty cool adaptation. You can see it as she's swimming by, kind of right behind her eye there. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that allows the animal to actually, more of an air bladder situation. They can go down in the bottom and breathe differently than what we call ram ventilator shark right behind me. They have to move in order to breathe.
Now, you can also see it very well on our rays. Right behind their eye, something called that spiracle.
Yeah,
that actually is what lets them take in that water and push it through their gills on the bottom. That allows rays and sharks like our zebra shark to take a rest. I don't know about you, but I would much prefer to have spiracles if I were a shark than to have to be swimming my entire life.
I was going to say, here's our Queensland grouper. I keep pointing at him. Right there you can see he's about 4 feet. I don't know how many pounds he is, a couple hundred pounds. He's going to get probably quadruple that size. We feed him by hand. He's a very gentle creature. And just over there waiting for one of us to give him some more food. So he's another big guy that will sometimes come right here in front of you. If you're able to get a picture of him, it'd be great.
Yeah, now the Queensland grouper is also a very special fish. We do only have one of them here at the aquarium, but if you look kind of to my left, it's a little bit hard to see as the mangrove ray is trying to take up the spotlight. There's actually a glass pocket with a number 20 and a silhouette of the Queensland grouper. When you see these around the aquarium, that's because we are celebrating our 20th anniversary this month, and that means that animal was a charter animal.
That's right.
Our Queensland grouper is about 26 years old, and they're going to live to be about 80 or 90 years old. They can get up to about 9 feet long and weigh upwards to almost 900 pounds. At some point in another 30 years, it's going to be like a Honda Civic driving around this exhibit. So definitely come by and check that out. And keep an eye out for more of those placards so you know who else are charter animals of the aquarium.
Well, how about the turtles? However, I don't see the turtle right now, so...
Definitely keep your eyes peeled. If you guys see the turtle, let us know. Turtle can hold its breath for up to 5, sometimes even 6 hours, and they're kind of lazy, so they tend to just lie on the bottom and take naps all day. So if you see one, be really excited. Let us know. We'll definitely talk about it. But you know...
I was going to say, the turtles, by the way, they were confiscated as eggs down on the border, weren't they? We raised them from babies. one of them is across the way and the other one is here. They can't be together. They fight too much.
Yeah, they are brothers. Sibling rivalry does kind of keep them separated now for their health. We did originally think they were both females, though, so we actually named them Thelma and Louise. Turns out they're boys, so now it's Theo and Leo.
Here you go. Here you go.
Theo's over here, though. So if you see him in this side, that's Theo. Leo's on the other side of that tunnel when you guys walk through. They are separated there. But now, we were just talking about the rays and the sharks and how they have some similar things, but they're actually members of the same family, right?
Well, they don't have any bones, so they're all cartilage. That's what makes them a little bit more flexible, especially the sharks and the stingrays. So that's where they differ from. The Queensland grouper here is a bony fish. It's got bones like we all do. The rest of them are all cartilage.
That's right. You guys have cartilage, too. If you feel your ears and the bridge of your nose, that's actually cartilage. You notice that those are different tensions. So you can actually identify that cartilage can change its density, which is something that's pretty unique. It's something that sharks and rays take advantage of. So if you notice, the sharks are very flexible as they swim around. And look at the rays, the way that their pectoral fins or their wings actually bend, and how flexible they are. It's because that cartilage is very light. Now, not only is cartilage structurally sound, it is much lighter than bone, allowing these animals to swim pretty effortlessly through the water. In addition to that, because it's easier for them to swim, they actually need to eat less than you'd think they do. A lot of people think a shark needs to eat half of its body weight every single day. Turns out most sharks only need to eat about 7 to 10% of their body weight a week, which is a lot less than, say, our Queensland grouper compared on body mass.
That's right.
So sharks actually really aren't this voracious stomach that's running around the ocean.
By the way, the sharks are extremely important no matter what you read. This is so funny when he comes by here. He's probably looking to see if Allison's got any more food for him. So they're very gentle creatures, by the way. You can see how gentle they are. They're great swimmers. But no, sharks are at the top of the food chain, so they're an incredible big part of the ecosystem in the ocean.
Right, we were talking a little bit about that while you guys were getting ready. That's why Palau made this a shark sanctuary. So can you tell us how sharks actually protect the food chain?
Well,
the food
because
web?
they're at the top, so they have to take out certain layers so we don't get overpopulated in other areas. So it's all the way who's either, eating on others, so the sharks really help clean the ocean up.
That's right. Sharks are pretty lazy. They like to go for the easy meal.
Yeah,
so
right.
The sick, the injured, the dying, the diseased fish, or the old ones that can't swim as fast. So that easy meal actually helps keep the fish population much healthier.
It does.
And it keeps the populations in better competition with each other, which actually supports all of that biodiversity. Because how many of you guys like looking here and seeing all of these different types of pretty fish? You can raise your hand if you do. That's fine. There we go. If we took away all the sharks, then we'd lose that out in the wild.
You can see here's the vegetable eaters, by the way. Here they're all eating their lettuce.
So, Dave, we just had a question about why lettuce. And I think you kind of mentioned it earlier, but algae does grow, right? A lot of these guys would eat algae in the wild, right?
Well, yeah. So we do have a little bit of algae behind us here, but not enough to keep them going. So we have replaced it with lettuce. We have broccoli. They love broccoli. It's the same type of chlorophyll-like plant, so the animals do not know the difference. They go crazy over lettuce. You can see what they're doing here. So they'd eat lettuce all day long if we let them.
And it does have that same nutritional value as algae, just a lot easier for us than letting algae grow all over the exhibit so you guys can't see. I'm going to be honest, our divers work really hard to keep it clean so you can see it. But so the sharks are doing a lot for our system, but this whole ecosystem is based off of the coral, right? That's why this site's so famous. You have the sharks and the big fish coming into the coral, maybe find a meal, find a place to lay their eggs.
That's right.
So can we talk a little bit about the coral?
Well, yeah, so you guys have all heard the term coral reef. That's what's behind me, right? You see that big wall? Okay, that big wall is artificial, just so you know. It's made out of plaster. It's not a real coral reef because we would never pull this size of coral reef out of the ocean. This is a couple thousand years of growth, so it's artificial. The animals do not know the difference, but we want to show you what a coral reef looks like because they're being damaged throughout the world, and we've got to be careful where we're putting our trash and recycle. But we do want to show you that that's what it's going to look like, is what a coral reef if you went down to the tropics.
That's right, and I've been to a couple tropical locations. I can tell you this is a pretty accurate portrayal. But as you were just saying, this staghorn coral growth behind me could represent 2,000 years of growth.
That's right.
Coral in a good year can grow maybe 2 centimeters. But it is a very sensitive creature, and it is a living animal, actually related to jellies and anemones. And a lot of them, like these ones, the hard corals, actually secrete a skeleton and actually ends up building the reef over thousands of years. But coral is very sensitive, and you kind of mentioned it, that we need to help protect it because the slightest thing can actually spend coral off into a decaying state. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and how we can protect it?
Well, we see so much trash in the ocean you wouldn't believe it, so picking up, don't put stuff in your storm drain because it's going to go into the ocean. Oil, paint, they all wind up there, so just be careful where you're putting everything. That's the big thing we can do.
That's right. The slightest change can send coral into this really devastating cycle. Coral does actually have what's called a symbiotic relationship with an algae called zooxanthellae. When it gets stressed out, it kicks out that zooxanthellae, and then suddenly it's like, oh, now I have no more food coming in. Sometimes that becomes a fatal decision on the coral, and that leads to something called coral bleaching, which is in the news a lot these days. And that could happen, that can get started with something as simple as a degree temperature change, or as Hawaii has just recently banned certain sunscreens, because they learned that there's a chemical in a lot of sunscreens that's actually stressing the coral out and creating a more susceptible area for bleaching. So now there's reef-safe sunscreen. So are there ways that we can help besides watching our trash to help protect the coral?
What was I going to say? Reduce down, there goes my buddy again, reduce down your carbon footprint, how much you're driving. A lot of that makes a big difference.
Exactly. Any little step that you take. I like to say that there are 7 billion people on the planet. If 7 billion people made one daily action to reduce their carbon footprint, as simple as turning off a light switch they're not using, or lowering their thermostat, or raising it a degree in this heat wave, you're reducing the amount of carbon footprint that we are putting out, and that very quickly becomes a movement if 7 billion people are doing it, not to mention spreading more ocean awareness. But you guys are already doing something great for the ocean. You're simply here today. You're spending time to learn about it. You guys yourself are starting your stewardship towards the ocean, so give yourselves a pat on the back. You know, we are a nonprofit, and we do appreciate your support. It helps us feed our fish, make sure the divers have functional equipment, and keep the whole facility clean.